Hi everybody, here's a quiz video for Tuesday's lecture. I just want to put it out there that I'll be using and tweaking the professor's code for this, that he coded this lecture, so please make sure you understand what he did prior to watching this video. So the first question is change the code from this lecture to print the words centered within the box. So here's our professor's code that he wrote today, and this is what it outprinted. Now if we can realize here that Sir, for example, has two spaces after its word has been printed, and therefore it can be centered such that one space is printed before printing the word. So we're going to have to modify this code somewhere down here where it's printing such that I print one space before and one space after if I have an even amount of spaces. But for example, the maple, where there's only one space after, so that's an odd amount of spaces, I cannot print half a space before and half a space after. Therefore, maple is considered to be centered in this case. So, professor's code, I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to paste it into a new document. And we'll call it. There we go. So as I said, the only thing I really need to be tweaking is down here, where the printing statement is. So I need to check if there is an even amount of space or not. And if there is, I need to divide that even amount of space by 2 so that I have half of them. I'm going to print half of them before, and I'm going to print half of them after. So I'm going to store an integer, or declare an integer x, and I'll initialize it to 0, and this is going to keep track of how many spaces I have. Now right before I go and I touch my i's here, I'm just going to be dealing with my y's, so my j. In other words, I'm going to be looking at how many spaces I have for each line at j where j is not equal to 0, because that would be up here, and where j is not equal to y max minus 1, which is equal to down here. So if my j, as I said, is not equal to 0, and my j is not equal to y max minus 1, well then, my integer x here, I'm going to redeclare it, and I want it to equal to the length of the longest word, so the length of everything that's inside, that would be longest. And I want to minus from this longest. No, I don't need brackets. Sorry. I'm going to minus from this longest the length of the word at each position of j, where j is not equal to 0 and j is not equal to y max minus 1. So I'm going to do my words. So I'm going to call my array of words, and I'm going to look at each position of j where j is not equal to 0, j is not equal to y max minus 1. And I am going to look at the length of those words. And now this whole thing, now that I have the length of my longest word minus the length of the word at each position j, I need to divide that by 2. Okay, so right now I have, technically for sir it should be 2, and if I divide it by 2, it's going to return a 1 because I declared x as an integer and not a double. So it can never return a 0.5. It can always return a 1 or a whole number. So for example, for maple, the length of my longest word is 5 minus the length of my word at this position is 4. That's going to be a 1. Now if I divide 1 by 2, it's going to be technically 0.5, but since it's an integer, it's actually going to return a 0. And that's why 0 spaces are going to be printed beforehand. So now that this is set, I'm just going to go down here So I'm not going to touch the printing of my actual square that surrounds my words, but I am going to touch here of what happens inside my words. So if it's not drawn, so if it's false, if it's true, well then I'm going to make another statement that says if my I is less than or equal to my X. So in other words, if my I, the position of the X at which I'm at, and of course it can never be I at position 0 or I at position X max minus 1, because if it is, well then will go through the first if statement and print a little star. So here, if my I, so the first value I can have here is 1. If my I is less than or equal to my X, so in other words, it's less than or equal to the number of spaces that I have left divided by 2, well then I'm going to ask it to I'm going to just simply ask it to print a line, print a space, sorry. And then else, my else, so if, in other words, if my I is bigger than the number of spaces divided by 2, well then I'm going to print the word. And the same way the professor printed the word here, I'm just going to copy and paste it into my appropriate else statement. And now this should work. As I said, sorry, and then after this works, remember we go back to the last else statement where you're just going to print a space for everything that's not prior to the amount of spaces that I need, or that's not the length of the word. Then you're just going to print a space at the end. So this should work, and as I said, the only word that actually needs modification is the first word here, sir, because it has enough spaces after the word sir to recenter the word sir. The other words are technically already centered. So we'll compile that, and I have a problem. Let's try semicolon. Let's run. There we go. So as you can see, my word sir indeed printed one space prior to printing the word sir, because the number of spaces divided by 2 was less than or equal to the position at which I am at for I. But that wasn't the case for the other words. So that's the first question. For the second question, it says update the program to output a more interesting square outline, such as the one indicated here. So yet again, I'm just going to copy the professor's code. I'm going to rename it. And I am going to now skip ahead to where my box is being printed. So here, in this statement right here, my box is being printed for everything that I is equal to 0. So everything where I is equal to 0, or j is equal to 0, or I is equal to I max, x max minus 1, sorry, and j is equal to y max minus 1. But now I want to look at position by position and outprint a different symbol instead of just a star for all of them. So this is just a whole bunch of if statements. And we're going to look at it as a coordinate system, the same way we did for this. But we're just going to have more if statements because we need an if statement for each symbol that we want to outprint. So I'm going to start with my little lines here. So these little lines are actually printed at my y is equal to 0, so j is equal to 0, and my j is equal to y max minus 1. However, you do realize that it's discluding my x is equal to 0, so I is equal to x, I is not equal to 0, and it's discluding where my x is maxed. so where my I is equal to x max minus 1. So we need to make a statement where this is equal to 0, y is equal to 0, y is equal to max, discluding x is equal to 0 and x is equal to max. And that can just be simply written so the first case scenario is where, as I said, j is equal to 0 and I is not equal to 0 and I is not equal to x max minus 1. So that was for this one right here. J is equal to 0 and I is not equal to 0 and I is not equal to x max minus 1. And for then, I also want to print this character for places where my j is equal to y max minus 1 and my I is not equal to 0 and my I is not equal to my x max minus 1. So that next statement, this OR statement right there, is actually for this line here where my y is equal to my y max minus 1, discluding I is equal to 0 and discluding I is equal to x max minus 1. So that's for that statement. Now, instead of going right ahead and printing the words and all those things, we're going to make sure we have another if statement for another symbol. Say we'll be dealing with, we'll deal with this symbol now. Okay, this slash is actually found right here and right here. So the first thing here is that my I is actually equal to 0, so my x is equal to 0, and my y is equal to 0. So let's go print that. So here my I is 0, and my j is 0. The other place where I have a slash is right here, and right here is my position of y is equal to y max minus 1 and x is equal to x max minus 1. So we'll just go ahead and put that in. So I is equal to x max minus 1 and my j is equal to my y max minus 1. So that's for the slash. Now there's still more symbols, so we're going to continue doing this. We'll deal with this symbol here. No, the backslash now. Now, if you guys realized, there is a problem here because my bracket is in red, meaning that this backslash actually means something in Java, and I can't just print a backslash. And probably what it means, it has something to do with the, if we remember correctly, the backslash n is print a line. So there we go. So backslash means something, and I can't just print a backslash. So this gave me a little bit of trouble when I tried it, but I realized that actually in Java, all the characters have a number that they correspond to. And the backslash corresponds to the number 92. So the character of backslash corresponds to the number 92. So if I declare a character called, say, Z, and that character is going to be 92. Meaning I forced my character 92 into a character. I could have forced it into an integer, I could have forced it into something else, but it's actually a character. So instead of printing my backslash, I'm going to print my character Z, which is, in fact, the backslash. So I've stored this character backslash that Java knows into a character I called Z, so that when I put it here, it should print a backslash and not give me the problems of printing, of doing this that doesn't work, because as you can tell, it's not completed here. Now this backslash is in two places, right here and right here. So we'll start with this place. This place right here is my I, so my x is equal to 0, and my y is equal to my y max, so j is equal to y max minus 1. So we'll go enter that in right now. So we said for I is equal to 0, and my j is equal to y max minus 1. Now it's also found up here, and up here is actually my j is equal to 0, so y is equal to 0, and my x is equal to my x max minus 1, so I equal to x max minus 1. Let's go put that in right here. So we said j is 0, and where my I is my x max minus 1. So that takes care of the backslash. Now we're missing one character, which is this little line here. So we need one more else if statement that will take care of this character. There we go. Now this character is found in also two places, right here and right here. So right here is where my x is equal to 0, but discluding my y is equal to 0 and my position y is equal to y max. So I want all my x along my line where my x is equal to 0, so along this whole line here, could be as long as I want it to be. I wanted to print that statement except for where my y is equal to 0 and where my y is equal to y max. So let's go put that in. So everywhere where my x is equal to 0, but also where my j, so my y, is not equal to 0, and also where my y is not equal to my y max minus 1 value. Sorry. The second place this thing is also found is right there. So that is along the line of x max is equal to, no, x is equal to x max, but also discluding, yet again, y is equal to 0 and y is equal to y max. So here, my I is going to be equal to my x max minus 1, but I also need it to be that my j is not equal to my position 0, and my j is not equal to my y max minus 1. I hope this is clear for everybody. I'm really just playing around with my coordinate system of my box with I corresponding to the value, x corresponding to the value I, and my y is corresponding to the value j. And I'm just asking to print along each of these lines where my x corresponds to a constant value and my y doesn't correspond to that value. That's all I'm printing for each kind of thing. So now if I save this, I compile, and I run. So there is the box he produced, and there are my words embedded in the box. So I didn't change the word embedded in the box, that's all down here. I just changed how I'm going to print everything around those words.